What are you going to miss about it as you step away?
So you just mentioned, being accountable for those people. It was real easy, jumping out of bed every morning, especially as a squad leader, knowing that there was 9, 10, 11 guys in that cage every morning that were like going to be looking at me for the answers, knowing that you have the ability to positively influence the lives of, between 10 and 30 people every single day. At the squad leader level. That's something I'll miss. And I didn't realize it until probably my going away party.
Right. Welcome to the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. I'm your host, still, Yuma Barnett. Today I got a special guest, a 175 brother. My roots go all the way back to 175 and the same company, Alpha Company 175, Matt Ball. He's also a Bostonian from up north in Boston, so we can see if we can get that Boston accent to come out a little bit. Matt served about 6 years in the 75th Ranger Regiment. He's transitioning out of the Army and is currently enrolled at Emory in their full-time MBA program, and we'll just talk about that a little bit. But I won't monopolize the time here. I'll pass it over to Matt so he can introduce himself.
Yeah, so born and raised Boston, Massachusetts, in a neighborhood called Dorchester inside the city. Typical blue-collar Boston family. Entire families in, the law enforcement and the fire department. One of two men in my family that's not a police officer or a fireman, and the other one happens to be a Navy SEAL, so I won't talk about that too much. Joined the Army straight out of high school. Got to regiment at 18 years old, as a young, moldable kid. Stayed there for the next 6-7 years, 6 rotations, and got my undergrad degree at the University of Charleston throughout that time, which brings me to where I currently am at business school.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the undergrad and how that maybe prepared you for Emory and just in life in general, the education portion of things. So you didn't choose the police officer or firefighter route or the SEAL route, thankfully, like other family members. What did they think about it when you joined the Army?
So it was a big running joke in my family originally because my grandmother had pictures of all the Marines in the family on the wall, and I was the first one to break that tradition going in the Army. My cousin followed shortly after, but my brother was a Marja Marine in 2010, and in 2014 when I was getting ready to join, he's like, "You don't want to do this," He's like, "Go do something else." And there was some Rangers from the community and everything, so I think whatever I wanted to do it at a high level, and I did my research and I found the regiment, and it seemed pretty motivating, so I figured I'd give it a try.
So family-wise, were you expected to maybe follow in their footsteps, or were they just they were fully supportive of you choosing a different way to serve the country?
Yeah, everyone was pretty excited about it. Yeah. Nobody really knew about the Ranger Regiment. Not many people in the neighborhood. I think there was one Ranger from the neighborhood. There was a Green Beret. But it was everybody went in the Marine Corps. Right. And everybody did that for 3 or 4 years, and then they got out and became a fireman or a police officer. So pretty supportive.
Yeah, that's good. So you have a family of service in your background. So as you're coming up on this transition here, was there thought about maybe transitioning into that same line of work as they did? Was that an initial thought, or was going on to like business school something you wanted to do from the jump?
No. So, at 16, 17 years old, I would have never thought I would have an undergrad. Right. Never mind being one of the top MBA programs in the country. The goal was when I graduated high school was to, get my veteran status, because that's what you needed to be competitive in the police or fire in Boston, and then get out and go do that. And that was the goal for a long time. And I got to my 3-4 year mark. I became a team leader, and I was like, why would I leave this? Right. I was having a blast. Yeah. Train with my friends, then go overseas every summer. And that was something I didn't want to step away from. Right. And then as I was a team leader, squad leader, I was like, I need to go to college. Right. So throughout that time, I just kind of opened up all these new opportunities, and it didn't seem like I could see the rest of my life in front of me if I went and became a police officer or a fireman. Yeah. And Ray talks about it a lot. He talked about it on your show, that growth mindset. Yep. And I just didn't see that growth mindset going home and seeing, in 5 years I'll be doing this, and in 6 years I'll be doing this, and I'll be living in this neighborhood. So
yeah, so it's you joined service, obviously you joined something that's difficult, and now you're finding challenge in your next venture, you're not taking the traditional path, which is good. I think that helps with the growth mindset and lifelong learning. And we'll discuss a little bit about your service and the education, but we'll ask the question up front that I ask everybody about vulnerability and what their definition of vulnerability is. What's yours?
So I think, like, as far as, my time in the regiment, vulnerability to me as a leader would be, being comfortable and willing to being comfortable knowing nothing about most things.
Yeah.
And being open and willing to communicate that, both up and down.
Yeah.
Being willing to tell the leadership, like, hey, I'm stretched a little thin here, right. Or being open to the guys in the squad or the platoon, saying, like, it's okay that the squad leader doesn't know what he's doing right now.
Right. I think you hit on something good there. And another aspect of vulnerability is not everybody's going to agree with what your thoughts are or what your way of thinking, but just because they don't agree with it doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just adds different perspectives to it. But if you just sit back and you don't open up about it, or at least give your point of view, you'll never be heard. Right. So vulnerability is not a weakness. It can be a weakness, but if we don't know our vulnerabilities and how to leverage them, we're not going to be as successful. So it's super important. And I'm sure as that 18-year-old kid, you felt some vulnerability when you flew into Atlanta and trucked down to Fort Benning to start your journey into the 75th Ranger Regiment as an infantryman. So as you're closing your Ranger career, right, and you look back on it, what has this organization meant to you for the past 6-7 years?
So, I'll steal a line from one of my good friends, 175 Ranger, Massachusetts guy, now up at Harvard. He told me once, he was born in Boston, but the Ranger Regiment raised him.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be more accurate.
Right.
I got there at 18 years old. I didn't know anything about life. And there was no diversity of thought, being from Boston. And the regiment raised me.
Right.
And everything I've accomplished in my life, I came from a good family, but it's all due to the regiment. Right. Where I am now, what I've accomplished so far. Yeah. So
I think the regiment's really good about putting you in a thing where you have to earn it every day. Right. And that's one of the kind of the hidden secrets, I think, about the regiment is we have young Rangers, guys and girls coming into the organization that you have to be accountable to them every day, right? So you can never rest on your laurels in our organization because you've always got somebody new that's looking at you, right? I remember vaguely being that private looking at the squad leaders, and you probably the same looking at them. So you always have to be on your best game in this organization, which I think is one of the unique things in the SOF community. What are you going to miss about it as you step away?
So you just mentioned, being accountable for those people. It was real easy, jumping out of bed every morning, especially as a squad leader, knowing that there was 9, 10, 11 guys in that cage every morning that were like going to be looking at me for the answers, knowing that you have the ability to positively influence the lives of, between 10 and 30 people every single day.
Yeah.
At the squad leader level. That's something I'll miss. Yeah. And I didn't realize it until probably my going away party.
Right.
You see all the younger guys get up there and talk about you, and talk about the positive influence you've had in their lives.
Yeah.
I'll miss that.
Yeah, it is. Because, I stepped away from the organization in the Army for a brief bit in 2004, and you just miss, there's just a brotherhood, a camaraderie. And those little nuggets you get when somebody says, thanks for what you did, and you're not expecting it, that makes it hard to step away, but it is like you said, it's a great place to grow up and become a man, right? Mm-hmm. And become a leader. And I'm sure you're going to miss it, and the organization will miss you, but you're going to go do great things as you exit. But before we move on to that, what's the one day or one thing from your time in the 75th that sticks out? What's that one thing that you think back of, either fondly or, wish you had done, or what is it? What's that one thing that always sticks out in your mind?
So it's tough because the organization gives you a lot of experiences, a lot of memories.
Yeah.
You start talking with your friends over a beer, and a lot of stuff comes back.
That's right.
One that sticks out recently was, not too long ago, last deployment, last mission, the flight home, watching the sun come up over the mountains of Iraq, and I'm complaining about my back. It's getting a little tight. Those long 6-hour rides home, and I was just thinking the 18-year-old kid from Boston would have never have dreamt of this, you know? At that point I was 25 and I realized I had accomplished everything I had ever dreamt of my entire life.
Yeah.
You know? So it was the moment I needed, for my transition, you know? It was the reflection I needed to feel comfortable stepping away into that new thing.
Yeah. And I think that's super important. The organization, you do so many amazing things while you're here in a really short period of time. You know, even in a 1-year training cycle, you do a lot of things that are you can't explain it to somebody who's never done it. But you have those moments of like quiet reflection where a memory comes back or you reflect on something. I just turned in all my equipment last week and I was undoing the snaps on my body armor, right? Undoing all the snaps and taking my grenade pouch out. And I got a little misty eyed because I was like, I'm never going to do this again. I'm never going to put a body armor together again. And that kit was to me like the helmet and shoulder pads are to a football player. You know, and you'll have those moments as you're going forward, those little moments that remind you of something, and they're great, but they're also a little bit like, dang, I wish I could do that one more time. You know, as we move from your service in the 75th, I think the culture's changed a little bit, and you got your undergraduate degree before exiting as an NCO. I know a lot of guys that I talked to that have exited previous generations wish they had done it, right? And myself included. I just finishing my last class, you know, in about a week. Why did you choose to knock that out before exiting service?
So, you know, I realized, you know, like a lot of people were getting out of the military in my friend group and they were going to college and they were getting on civil service jobs. I enrolled in Norwich for a period of time and I didn't start the classes, and I was looking at the timeline. I was like, this is going to take me years to complete. Yeah. And it was intimidating, you know. 175 did an education brief, and as you said, the culture is changing. I think this was probably the start of the shift. Yeah. It was probably like 2018. And I think it was Dr. Retzlaff from University of Charleston was up there, and he was talking about, if you're a Ranger squad leader, you get 72 credits to come to our school. Yeah. I started doing the math in my head, and I went up to him after. I was like, did you say 72 credits? And he's like, yeah, 72 credits. He's like, if you promise you come walk for graduation. Yeah. And I was like, where's the paperwork? Where do I sign up? I can finish that in a year. Yeah. So I started working on that, and I'm glad I did, because, what I'm currently doing would have never even have been, right, in the vision, right, if I didn't start that. So it was really, I saw this timeline that I could have been, capitalizing on before I got out, right, and decided to knock it out. Yeah.
I think when I talk to guys or girls or anybody that's getting out that doesn't have their education, they'll say, well, I don't need it. I don't need it to get there. And I tell them, you're right. You do not need it. But think of it as like your Ranger tab. It gives you another menu of options and things that you can do. It broadens what you're able to do. It's the ticket to get the interview. It's the ticket to get through the first phase, right? It's just a piece of paper, no more than the Ranger tab is a piece of cloth, but it will open doors for you that you could maybe open otherwise, but it's going to be more difficult, and I think that's what undergrad education does for you. For me, it also helped translate my military experience into civilian speak. Did it do the same thing for you? Yeah, for sure.
It helped with that, one, and, it wasn't too much work, 4 or 5 hours extra a week, and when I look back at that, like, I probably got between 15 and 25 extra Rangers into the program since starting it, because that's what I tell them. Is like, if it's a few hours extra a week, and when you get out, if there was this amount of doors open, but now there's 5 times as many, just put in 5 hours of work.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it definitely helped with that. And I know we're going to get to the Honor Foundation, but the combination of the two, it really allowed me to tell my story.
Yeah, I think the undergrad stuff, like I said, just every time when I was doing, because we went through the same program at the University of Charleston, when I'm reading books like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I'm just like, I do this already. This is what I do, but it's 7-8 or something. Yeah. So it translated it for me so I could speak better during interviews and in the process. So truly, anybody should, if you're going to do it, have the Army pay for it, I say, right? And then save that money for your follow-on education like you're doing. Moving on. So we went to the Honor Foundation together. That's where we first met, was in that cohort. I can't say enough about the Honor Foundation. I've talked about it. What is your thoughts on the Honor Foundation? What did it do for you? So
the Honor Foundation single-handedly, gave me the confidence to speak about myself.
Yeah.
And, as we talk about, like future opportunities in business school and everything, like Rangers are very humble people.
Yes.
And I isn't really in our vocabulary.
Right.
But when you move forward with the rest of your life, you're going to have to be able to say, like, I had this impact on this mission we did, or this tasking. Because you're not taking, in my sake, I'm not taking ACO 175 with me into my professional career or into my educational career. So the Honor Foundation helped me cultivate that story. It helped me find my why, and it helped me tell the story as an I and not a, we second squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing what you lose sight of, so in the military, not just a Ranger Regiment, your actions can speak for you, right? If they don't know who you are, if the first sergeant commander don't know who you are, they're going to see you at squad live fires, and they're going to see you perform, right? So you're going to gain a reputation there as a performer. And that's the same thing with athletes, I think, too, right? Some athletes are extremely humble that don't know how to talk about themselves because they're team oriented, and they let actions speak for what they do. And it's really hard to balance humility with humble confidence, right? And I think that's what the Honor Foundation did for me and you and all of us, is just help us kind of tell our story and make it ours, and help us see the value in what we have done, and that brings value to the next phase of our lives, right? So I can't say enough about the Honor Foundation. Great program. From the Honor Foundation, what part of that, because it's those 3 phases really, what phase of it really just resonated with you?
I think you go through the mock interview experience. Now I'm in business school, I'm doing mock interview, I'm doing real interviews, and going to grad school, you do interviews. And I realized, at the end of the day, you're selling yourself, and like they're hiring the story, they're hiring the individual, the experiences, and how well you can leverage those, and how well you can speak about those and speak about yourself. That's what's going to separate, the good from great candidates for the rest of your life. So that experience is great. And there was some great volunteers. I had some great feedback in this. Some of those mock interviews, the guy would just pause it and say, let's start this over. I got a job offer from one of those interviews.
Nice.
So, that was probably it. And then the why. I forget the guy's name. Somebody came in and did the whole why class.
Oh yeah. The Simon Sinek, the start with why stuff.
That was a good class too.
The Honor Foundation does, as Michael Halterman would say, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
For sure.
And it's super uncomfortable talking about yourself and telling people like your why, right? It's just not in our nature. It's not what we do. And that really helped me out. And I agree, the mock interviews, it just settled me, right? Because I was super nervous going into it, because I thought I was walking into a boardroom, right, again, with another SAR major there. But it was just a conversation between, me and the interviewee. And then even some cases I found that they were more nervous about the interview than I was, right? So can't say enough. Highly recommend the Honor Foundation. If you are a transitioning service member that spent time in SOF, I know you can hit up Matt via LinkedIn. You can hit me up if you have questions about it, and we can answer some questions about the Honor Foundation and how it can help you set up for your transition, because I agree that's the singular most important thing I did in my transition pipeline was go to the Honor Foundation, right? And I think another key, unique portion of it is they hold you accountable, right? Did you find that too through Honor Foundation?
Was it 2 nights a week?
2 nights a week.
You have 2 nights a week for like 3 hours a night. And they make sure you're putting in that time. They'll reach out to reschedule your session if you miss one. Which is great because I was overseas for a portion of it. So doing those classes at like 3-4 o'clock in the morning until 7 a.m. But I'm glad they did, because that telling my story and feeling comfortable talking about myself, that stuff doesn't go away. And it's still there. So
I think that's, and not only do they hold us accountable, they hold themselves accountable. They hold their mentors accountable. They hold themselves accountable. They come out with a really good product. And I bet it's even helping you now as you're in Emory, some of the stuff we did in THF.
Yep. So one of my classes, we had to tell a story the other day, so I told the same story. It was the same one. It was like, I knew exactly the timing of the story. If I spoke for this amount of time, I knew it was a 5-minute story. So it's not going away. It's in the job interviews. It's the resume walk. It's tell me about a time you did this. So that's another great one. STAR. The STAR, the class that we did for the Honor Foundation. It's it's the same one they teach at Goizueta Business School. And they talk about bringing in Simon Sinek. It's like, oh, we did that,
Yeah.
I've already done that. So it's good.
It is good. Yeah. Really good stuff. Can't say enough about it. So you brought up Goizueta Business School up there at Emory. So when I talked to you, and even in the Honor Foundation, it seemed like you were going to maybe transition out and kind of follow the same path of service, firefighter, maybe a policeman, to where now you're attending classes at a top 25 business school. That's a big flip. That's a big change. It's probably a culture shock up there at Emory. What led you to Emory?
So, like when I was joining the military, I said this earlier, but there was never an ounce of, hey, I could do that.
Yeah.
I probably should have been a little bit more confident as I started growing up and accomplishing the things I was setting myself out to do. But, I got to the Ranger Regiment and I was like, okay, I did it. Got my undergrad and I was like, okay, 4.0 GPA, this isn't too bad. I can go to college.
Right.
I can go to grad school. And it was on a phone call with Ray Perez, and he started telling me about his growth mindset and how organizations all over the country are going to learn the value of a Ranger NCO.
Right.
And he was a big motivator for me.
Yes.
So I was talking to him. I was like, I should do this, and I thought I was going to have a big break in between. I thought I'd spend a year, figuring out applying to schools because the timeline was kind of tight of when I was applying and when I was graduating from undergrad. And Ray was like, why don't you just apply?
Yeah.
And so once I did that and I reached out to General Keene and he was like, yeah, we need more Ranger NCOs in the program. And I was like, the culture really resonated with me.
Yeah.
So when I look at a career in law enforcement and the fire department, I was like, okay, I was just leading Ranger teams in combat. Am I going to find the same sense of purpose or challenge spending 24 hours on the couch in the firehouse or, directing traffic as a police officer, those are my biggest heroes in my life. My father, my brother, who's a fireman, they still will be, it didn't seem like the same challenge I was used to.
Right.
And I didn't think I was ready to settle down. And I knew a Ranger squad leader, that was performing at a decent level was going to go and thrive in that environment as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted that challenge,
right?
And Ray said he found it, so I took his word for it.
Yeah, I'm glad guys like Ray and the other guys that have gone through the Emory program. I'm glad they went, right? Because somebody's got to go first, and that's what we all do. We see ourselves in somebody else, and whether it's a squad leader, you can say I can do that someday if Matt's doing it or if Yuma's doing it. So to see Ray up there, it's like, okay, I can do this. We walk the same path. So super grateful for those guys that raised their hand first to go through that program. About the police and the firefighter, just curious, did the current environment as it is for police officers and kind of the lack of respect really that's out there, did that play a role into it?
So honestly, and my dad would reach out to me, and my dad retired as a lieutenant colonel in charge of Massachusetts State Police, or number 2 or 3. And he would say like, oh, this is not the job you want to do.
Right.
And I'd reply, I'd be like, if it's more of a challenge, they need, there's a bad environment for it because people are going out and messing up.
Yeah.
Somebody, they need leaders, they need people, better leaders to step in and drive that change, so that made it more attractive to me, was the fact that nobody wanted to go do it.
Yeah. That's,
and then I realized, I'd see my friends that were Boston police officers and they'd be switching to the Boston Fire Department. And it's like, why are you guys doing that? It's like, well, if you're a fireman, you work 8 days a month. If you're a Boston police officer, you get called every day for overtime and everybody hates you. So it did drive a little bit, but I think it was more so of like, I didn't see the challenge. I was talking to my friends every day and looking at what they were doing, and they were enjoying it, especially the firemen. You get really good at golf as a fireman.
Yeah, right.
But a lot of time on your hands, and
yeah.
I don't think I was ready to step away from the responsibility I had as a Ranger squad leader on a combat deployment to,
right.
Being in charge of only myself in a firehouse, sleeping through the night.
Yeah, that's good. So, and that's not going anywhere. That'll still be there if you get through the MBA process and Something might pull your heartstrings back there and use what you've got. So I think people got to take chances and do something outside their family norm, outside, maybe what's even expected of you think is expected of you. And it's just somebody's got to go first and do something different. So let's talk a little bit about Emory and their application process. You went through it rather rapidly, right? Through the process, and I'm sure you had a lot of help through the way. Any advice or lessons learned as you went through that process with a program of that caliber?
So I think one thing for the admissions process is you utilize organizations like the Honor Foundation, because the essays, it's all about, what you took away from your time as a leader and, what did you learn through these experiences? And that organization, that program, it gave me the confidence I needed to tell my story. And and don't be afraid to call people. Was it intimidating? Knowing that I was a 175 squad leader calling Ray Perez, or General Keene.
Right.
Like, it's intimidating, but you got to call those people because they're willing to help and they want to help. So I think being willing to pick up the phone, and then understanding your contribution to what the organization accomplished, would be the two biggest things, because I think when you look at it, especially from the enlisted side that got their degree online, when you start looking into top 20 business schools, it's like, there's a huge soft network. There is, but they were economics majors at West Point.
Right.
They didn't get their undergraduate degree in 12 classes from the University of Charleston. So I was talking to all these former Rangers, captains and majors, talking about, hey, come on up to Harvard or Wharton or Goizueta. And I was like, I got to find the guys that got the degree online, and that pool shrinks down real fast. Yeah. So being willing to call guys like Ray and now me and Mike Carrier and Herm Engelman and Matt Jones, this guy's in the program now that followed that path. Yeah. So we're growing a network, right? And we're trying to continue to grow it. So
I think you hit on something very important there. So in your time in the Army, all of our time in the Army in SOF, there's a lot of things you do singularly. Like nobody can help you with your PT test or your 12-mile ruck or, a lot of things you have to do on your own. And we become accustomed to doing certain things on our own and not asking for help. And it only gets worse the higher up in rank you go. You take more weight on your shoulders. But as you transition out, you're going to you need help. You need a network. You need relationships, right? To help, so that you can call and ask for help. And that's something that I've seen I've experienced personally, is just saying, hey, I need some help here can be difficult. Was that difficult for you at first?
It was at first, and I started doing it during the pandemic. I was spending a lot of time at home, and that's kind of when I realized like business school might be for me. And like, I didn't know what to ask on those phone calls.
Right.
Like the Honor Foundation teaches the cups of coffee. They tell you to hit 50 during the program. I'm probably at 150, 200.
That's good.
But those first ones were painful, and like you don't know how to, ask for time on their calendar or a phone call. And, luckily I did that while I was in the military, because now at business school, again, it doesn't go away.
Right.
You're talking to companies now, and I'd say just being willing to send that email or to send that message on LinkedIn or that text message. Yeah. If somebody gives you their contact info, they're telling you it's okay to contact them. So
you're right. And subsequently with that, it's okay if somebody says no, or I don't have time, which we're not used to. You're a Ranger squad leader. If you tell somebody to do something, you're used to them doing it, right? Or a Ranger first sergeant. If you send an email, you're going to get a reply. You got to put yourself in a mindset that other people have other priorities and things going on. It's just, you got to get over that a little bit. It might take 2 weeks before you hear back, and that's normal. That's okay. Right. And you just got to get over a little bit. So Emory, right? How has it been now that you're in there doing it?
It's been an interesting experience. Yeah. Like that timeline for transition was only about a month. So it wasn't a lot. And I think I needed that because you talk to guys and they say like, oh, like I'm really struggling. And I never felt like that. I never felt extremely separated from the regiment. And I think it was because I went from one challenge to the next so rapidly, that I was drinking through a fire hose. Yeah. But it's a different challenge. You're learning pretty rapidly and nothing, and the people you're surrounded by are very confident,
right,
intelligent people, very high caliber performers. So it's going great, but it is a challenge. And, you know, some of the Rangers in the class, we link up like pretty much every day for lunch. And, you know, Mike Carrier often says, you know, like, I wish we could just be like doing a long walk in Kentucky. I wish it was July in Kentucky and we were just walking down the road, you know, because, you know, that was difficult, but it's not presenting an economics assignment difficult,
right.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. We're really good at just pushing through physical pain. Yep. Right. Mental. When it gets mental and you have to do numbers and stuff outside of breaching calculations, which are mostly already done for you, it's not nearly as fun. But at least you get to suffer with some people that know where you come from, right?
For sure.
You get to share in the suffering together. And that's with anything. When you went to selection in Ranger school, those terrible classes or those terrible movements, those are the ones you remember, right? Yep. So you're definitely going to earn it, I assume, up there while you're at Emory. So when you found or had the self-realization, hey, I think I might want to do business school, why?
So, you know, like, I was trying to find things I could do outside the military. I was looking into the Army's enlisted to physician program. I was like, you know, like, that seems pretty challenging. You know, maybe I could go become a doctor. You know, people back home would lose their minds if they found out I was becoming a doctor. And they definitely, you know, don't look at me as the MBA candidate at go to business school either. So I wanted to do something where, you know, I could, you know, come into a company and have the same kind of influence I had in the Ranger platoon.
Yeah.
And, you know I won't have that immediately, but, you know, this MBA is going to open up the doors that will allow me to get into those high performing organizations, high performing companies, you know, be surrounded by top tier people again. It won't be the Ranger Regiment, but, you know, it will be a similar situation. So, and I knew that, you know, what MBAs do, they come into companies, they solve problems. Right. Like, I can solve problems, you know, I solve problems all the time. Right. So that was kind of the big thing for me. And then everybody I talked to was just so willing, you know, going back to the cold calling people, nobody said no.
Right.
You know, out of all the 100+ people I've talked to, nobody's ever turned me down. So I also wanted to pay it forward too. When I got there, I wanted to give it back.
Yeah, I think you're right. On the call it, people want to help.
Yep.
People want to talk. I don't say no to people. You know, I might have to reschedule them, but we'll get them get a call with them. I mean, so the MBA, you're how far into it now?
So I'm about 2 weeks from my first semester. So I'm about a quarter of the way through it.
Yeah. And up to now, so what's it look like? What's the path for you as a full-time? Because I've talked to quite a few guys that have done it, either Emory executive MBAs or other. What's the full-time look like?
So the full-time program, it's a core semester, your first semester. So you do all the core curriculum, so your finances, your accounting, your economics, data analytics. And then from there, you start to design your own schedule to meet the needs of your career, basically. So I'm almost done with that core semester. And from here on out, it will be like a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But that core semester was from when you wake up to you go to bed type of thing, especially for us Rangers. You know, we didn't come in with a basic understanding of finance and economics. So it's about, I'd say before it was like an 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then you do your schoolwork, and moving forward, that timeline will start to shrink down.
Yeah.
Now they're bringing in recruiting process. So I think the biggest difference between the full-time and the executive program is that recruiting process. You know, that executive program, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's business executives.
Already established. Yeah.
So business professionals that are looking to further education but still have a full-time job.
Yeah.
Whereas that full-time program, it's for the career transition folks. It's it's for people, you know, looking to propel them into a leadership position in a company.
Yeah. And I think there's some misconceptions, or I didn't even understand what a business school meant, right? Until I really started researching it and realizing how much like an MBA really translates to kind of what we do now, right? You're not hitting targets every night or going to the range and doing but you are at a high performing area. You're having to think on your feet, solve problems, all that stuff, like you said there. And I think it translates better than people realize to the Ranger Infantry squad leader, right? Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, like they're not trying to make you a data analyst.
Right.
They're trying to make you understand the material to where you could make decisions and lead teams in an organization.
Yeah.
So thank God, because I could not be a data analyst. But yeah, it definitely translates pretty well.
So we'll close out the MBA discussion with one more question. Anybody considering it, why should they do it or why shouldn't you do it?
So if you're looking for that, stable civil service career, then go do it. It's there, and you will thrive in it as a transitioning Ranger or transitioning soft vet. If you're looking for growth opportunities that are as far as you can see them, like the only barriers that are there are the ones you put on yourself.
Right.
In the MBA program. And I'm starting to learn that. I'm starting to knock down those barriers one by one. But anybody looking for a challenge that, isn't looking for that traditional civil service transitioning vet job, I'd suggest go give it a try. Because like you said earlier, those opportunities that, there's such a structured process for veterans transitioning, they're always going to be there. But you're only going to be a transitioning soft vet once, take advantage of that and get yourself into a position where that next credential you have is going to be lifelong.
Right. I agree. And then on the MBA, anybody's listened, I've talked mostly to guys at Emory. Do your research, right? You don't have to go to Emory. It's a great school, right? And it translates nation. But if you're going to go live in the Northeast for the rest of your life, look at Columbia, look at Harvard. If you're going to stay in Georgia, Terry Business School over at the University of Georgia is another great option. Or if you're going to stay in Atlanta, Georgia Tech's got a great MBA program. So, yes, we talk to a lot of Emory people because of the connection we have and the people I know up there. But do your research, and it matters where you go with an MBA, right? It matters what it says. If it's the difference between Alcorn State's MBA and Emory's MBA, there's a difference. It's just difference. This is the way it is. So do your research, and I think we can do it, right? There was a time for both of us probably setting out a coal range going, I think I don't know if I want to do this Ranger thing as I run to the wood line for the 50th time, but you just get through those mental barriers and, punch fear in the face and believe in yourself a little bit, and we can do anything, right? It's just numbers are scary for some of us infantry guys, right?
Get ready to feel like a Ranger private again. That's the best way to put it is your first year at business school. It's going to be like that private in the cage, looking around like I have no idea what I'm doing here.
And that's a really good point. Is I tell anybody who's transitioning where they're going, because you might have to take 2 steps back in the company you go to or whatever. But if you bring the same mindset that you had as that Ranger private or that Ranger team leader, and you show up every day, right place, right time, right uniform, and you work, you're going to go leaps and bounds ahead of your peer group, right? It's that there's a mindset that if we go back to it and we use it from this organization, you're going to be successful no matter where you are in life. I do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something I see at school. Showing up on time. Not everybody does that.
Yeah.
So I think you forget about a lot of the things. Like the you don't have to have a high and tight at school, but if you show up on time and you do things when you say you're going to do them, and you hold not just yourself but the people around you accountable, that will set you apart.
Yeah.
Because top performers, they hold themselves accountable, but like some people outside the military aren't willing to have those difficult conversations. Absolutely. Of calling people out and not just being critical of yourself but the people around you.
Yeah. So anytime I would get as I grew up, probably my E7 years passed, and when we get new guys coming into the battalion or whatever, who they're fired up, they're ready to go. All the kit and the helmet and everything looks really good. And I would always tell them, special operations isn't about the kit. It's not about the helicopter you fly on. It's about doing common tasks uncommonly well. That's what special operations is. It's showing up at the right place. It's bringing all of your equipment. It's taking care of your equipment. So, and I think that translates to anywhere. If you can do the common tasks well and don't have to worry about those things, then you can look at the big picture tasks. And I think that'll translate straight into an MBA program or into your career, right?
Sure.
So as you're starting to transition, as you transition and you're in the MBA program, is it already starting to open up doors that you would have never thought possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So, not only does the school have a structured recruiting process where companies reach out, they see your resume. That transitioning soft vet is it's an attractive site for companies I'm seeing. But there's also the Veterans MBA network that opens up plenty of doors. And then there's, simply having a presence on LinkedIn. Yeah. People see you're pursuing your MBA and you're a transitioning Ranger, So it is opening up opportunities. There's a few that are right in front of me, and then the school structure process will continue to open them up as we go into the spring. And another benefit of the full-time program is there's an internship built in there in the summertime.
Oh, good.
So plenty of opportunities, and I don't think the hard decision will be finding the opportunity. It's going to be deciding.
Yeah, deciding which one you want to go all in on. So what does that look like? What does the next phase look like? What are you trying to get into?
So, I'm looking at a few different things right now on the general management rotational program side of things where, you come into a company and they basically let you transition around the company to figure out what you're good at and you learn new things. And one thing that's really interesting to me is strategy consulting where, go into a company and helping them solve complex problems. And in that realm it's very tight-knit teamwork and it's a grind. It's long hours, it's difficult work, hard decisions. And being able to communicate with the client about what their goals are and how you're going to achieve them. There's a lot of parallels between that and being a Ranger squad leader, communicating with your team and the leadership and maybe the partner force is the client, managing client expectations and deliverables, training plans, progression, implementation, stuff like that. So that's what I'm looking to do.
Yeah, I think it translates better than people probably realize once you start getting into it. What you've done overseas is it's a consulting role, right? In a lot of aspects. And you just don't realize that's what you're doing. You're just doing it because that's what the job called for when you got up that morning, right? So finish up here, we'll wrap up. I'll ask the question I ask of everybody, right? So if you could go back to that 18-year-old, 19-year-old, when you had that private on your chest, what advice would you give yourself?
I'd say be more confident in yourself and don't create any barriers for yourself. Don't give yourself a left and right limit, explore anything and everything, and do so with confidence, knowing it doesn't matter, if you fail the first time and the second time, whatever you're out to do, you're going to accomplish it.
Right.
And it's not something I always believed as a 18, 19-year-old Ranger or a 17-year-old wannabe. Or a 22-year-old college student. It's not creating those barriers for myself, those limitations.
Right. That's great advice because I use that almost verbatim when I talk to people is don't create barriers that don't exist, right? Because all through our careers, we've had to do things. We had no choice. It's as soon as we get choice that we start to, pull back a little bit and think, I can't go to college. It's not a good time, right? I can tell you, I used to say it's not a good time when I was married and had one kid, and I'm doing it now married with 4 kids, right? So it's never going to be a good time. We all have the same 24 hours in the day, right? Don't make excuses that aren't really there that are going to hold you back, right? Just like the Covey says, begin with the end in mind. Where do you want to be in the end, and then how do you get there? And I think you're doing a phenomenal job setting the example for others to follow, carrying that creed with you as you go. And it might sound cheesy when you say it, when I say it, but I do truly appreciate, thanks for your service, right? You're in the 1% of a 1%, right? So for your time that you spent during a time of war, super grateful for it, right? As a lifelong leader in this organization, you're going to be missed, but I also know you're going to be a great representation for the Army and the 75th as you move forward. And thanks for what you do. Thanks for driving down here today from Atlanta to the sticks up here in North Columbus. I truly appreciate it. Best of luck to you as you move forward with the MBA. And if you want to reach out to him. LinkedIn's probably the best way to do it for guys. If you have questions about the MBA program or transition in general, I know Matt is here to help guys out. And like you said, pay it forward and pay it back. And for the listeners, make sure you like, share, subscribe. And if you got some value out of this, hit me up, LinkedIn, or in the comments below. And I appreciate it. And thanks for coming down.
Yep, sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.